Hello everyone, this is Lisa from Power Wheelchairs for Success, and we are going to discuss an important topic today, and it has to do with wheelchairs. And I realize there's a lot of people around the world, not only in the United States, who need wheelchairs. However, the need for a wheelchair needs to be thought through. It's a medical device that's going to help you, obviously, with mobility and independence. However, there are some things that need to be considered once you start using or will be using a wheelchair. Okay, so it's not that simple. Just because you struggle to get around doesn't mean that the wheelchair is 100% a good idea for you. Because, and a therapist will tell you this, you don't want to lose strength, because if you start using a wheelchair without consultation, you could lose muscle strength. It also, if you're moving less, that will affect your circulation and your heart, obviously. There are conditions in which it's important to move, to be able to keep pain down. So you have to have some kind of regimen for exercises, stretching, and some movement. So you really need to think twice before you start using a wheelchair part-time or full-time. I want you to consider that. And that's why it's important to talk to a doctor, talk to a physical therapist, talk to occupational therapist about the use of a wheelchair. A wheelchair should be used for a medical condition in which you promise yourself to make sure you're going to do the exercises that are needed to keep your muscles in the best shape possible, that you're going to keep your circulation going, whether it's nutrition or exercises, and that also you're going to take care of your weight, because once we start moving less, and we don't have as much to do, we eat more, obviously, so we could gain weight. Some people don't because of their condition, but some people do. So you also want to be careful with that, because there's a risk of heart issues, there's a risk of diabetes, and other issues, strokes. So the use of a wheelchair is important. It's a medical device. But if you overuse it or underuse it, let's say you really, really need a wheelchair, and you're not doing that. You're hurting yourself more, you're causing yourself pain, so it's on the other end of the scale in which a person should be using a wheelchair and is not, and is causing them misery and misery for the people around them. So we have the two extremes. The inappropriate use of a wheelchair and the lack of use of the wheelchair. So I use a wheelchair about 50% of my time now. I was using it 75% because I was in too much pain to be able to walk. So we worked on getting the pain down, doing the exercises, and so now I'm down to about 50% of my daily activities, which is good. It'll keep me healthier. However, we know that at some point it's going to be 100%, at some point in my future, whether that's this year or whether it's 2022 or 2023, we don't know. But in the meantime, I need to take care of my health to the best of my ability. So I have arm exercises that I do with a band, a flexible band. I do stretching with my legs in my bed. I use my walker as much as I can. It's painful, but I do it because it's important for my health. Once I start getting up to that level of pain then I'll go to the wheelchair and I'll rest. So this is my routine. I do my exercises for my arms at night, with the stretch band, all kinds of movements. So I do that at night. In the mornings, I do my stretching with my legs in bed. Carefully, because otherwise I'll cause myself unwanted pain. I'll take my shower, but I'll do that seated. I have a bench in the shower. When I step out of the shower, I'm seated. There's a chair right outside my shower. I have to rest because my energies are affected by other conditions. So then I'll rest for a few seconds and then I'll dry myself off. And so it's an effort to take care of your health. There has to be some kind of healthy schedule. So I'm hoping for 2022, those of you who are new to wheelchairs, are considering to start using a wheelchair or use a wheelchair full time, that you will consider a routine, to establish a routine, a healthy routine of eating well to the best of your ability, to doing exercises, stretching exercises, gentle exercises for your circulation and the health of your muscles, that you will figure out a way to shower and dress, whether it's with help or without help. So far I can do it without help. At some point I might not be able to. So you got to think of those things. How are you doing taking care of your body? Because you can't function without it. Can't separate yourself. So you got to see yourself as a whole person, mental, physical, and spiritual. If one of those three are not doing well, you got to readjust your process. What can you do differently to make sure you maintain your health? The healthier you are, the better you are, the less pain you have, you will be better emotionally and spiritually and physically. And the people around you will be better as well, because you're less stressed and less annoyed. I get very frustrated and angry when my pain levels just go through the roof. Sometimes they do. Sometimes it's just out of my control. So, are you falling a lot? Is there something you need to do differently with your house, with your home, with your bedroom, that you can do to prevent those falls? You are important. So you got to consider, do you need to rearrange furniture? Sometimes it's not just the wheelchair that we need to use. Sometimes we need other tools. I have a wheelchair, I have a walker, and I have a cane. I use all three. I really do. At night I have the cane right next to my bed, and that helps me for a few steps to get to the walker, and the walker helps me get to the bathroom. I can't have my wheelchair in my room because it's electrical. So in the building I'm in, they don't allow the electrical wheelchairs in the bedroom. So at some point we might consider a manual wheelchair for my bedroom. And if the power wheelchair is not functioning or there's a problem, I can use the manual wheelchair. Although I have to keep the manual wheelchair or the usage of the manual wheelchair down because it will affect my muscles and cause me a lot of pain. So that's why manual wheelchairs were not suggested for me. So that's the other thing that we need to consider what type of wheelchair do I need? Because everybody is different. I can't say you need to use this or that or the other. You need to be evaluated. And granted, manual wheelchairs are cheaper than electrical. I agree. But some of us, we can't do the manual wheelchairs. We just can't because of our muscle condition, because our neurological conditions. So that also needs to be evaluated. And know that a wheelchair, period, needs to fit you. It's not like you just hop in any wheelchair. And I get it. Some people in some parts of the world just can't be too picky. They have to get a wheelchair, period. In whichever shape it comes. Something with a seat and 2 wheels, 4 wheels. Because they don't have the luxuries we do in Europe and the United States, in which we have systems in which we can go through and get a wheelchair that fits us. The wheelchair shouldn't be too big or too small. Should be able to hold your weight. So you gotta consider all those things. It's not as simple as just getting a wheelchair. If I get a wheelchair, how am I going to keep my health going? What is it that I need to do for my health? If I'm moving less, walking less, you got to think about that. And a wheelchair might not be recommended for you. Then what is? Is there another solution to your problem? Does it have to happen in stages? When I had my first incident back in 2013, I started out, having to learn to walk again. So we did wheelchair, walker, crutches, cane, and then I let go for a while. I fell a few times through the years, and then it just became obvious that I needed more help. So I was put on a walker full time. And then the therapist said, wheelchair. Walk as much as you can, use the walker as much as you can, but if you're in a lot of pain, grab the wheelchair. So you got to be careful, consult with your doctor or a nurse, whoever's available, and talk to them about your walking, your mobility, and figure out, would a wheelchair work for me, or should I use a walker first? Will exercises improve my mobility? So there's a lot of questions that need, a good assessment. See if you can connect with someone who will have the time to do that assessment. Here in the United States, we have neuro rehab doctors who do those assessments, and then the physical therapist will do their assessment. And they'll make you move. They'll test you. See what's going on. They need to understand how your body is working or what's not working and why. They want to understand. You already know. So you don't have to prove anything. You already know what's going on. You might not have the words for it, but you know what's going on. The therapists and the doctors, they need to understand, okay, in your mechanics, bone, muscle, circulation, what's not working well, what needs support. So be careful. All I'm saying is be careful to grab a wheelchair when medically other things could be helping you. And for those of you who refuse a wheelchair, think about it again. Why cause yourself all the stress, all the pain, all the frustration when you could have access to a good wheelchair? I know in 2013 I struggled a lot with being in a wheelchair. It was like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And I got rid of it as soon as I could. As soon as I was able to walk. Maybe I was in a lot of pain. Maybe I was just not balanced yet, but I was walking. I didn't want to have anything to do with that wheelchair. And I fought hard from 2013 until now. The therapist saw me again and she was like, And she brought up that word again, wheelchair. Where's your wheelchair? What happened to the manual wheelchair we gave you back in 2013? Like, oh, I gave it back. It's like, we're not doing that. At this time. Are you willing to work with me, is what she said. She said, you need a power wheelchair. I was like, what? My brain just got really scrambled, and I was like, no. She'll forget about it. I'll just come back to therapy, and she won't talk about it again, and we'll just move on, and I'll do my exercises, and, She brought it up every single session. She was pretty good about it. I mean, she brought it up for 5-10 minutes in small doses so we could talk about the benefits and her reasoning as to why she was prescribing the wheelchair, the power wheelchair, and how she wanted me to use it. So it wasn't all in one dose. So every single session, she would take out 5-10 minutes at the end of the session, and she did her education and just touch base with me, see how my thoughts were going and my emotions about it. And once it seemed like I was more open about it, then we talked about the type of wheelchair and how I was going to use it and why. So it's for some people, it's going to be harder to accept that reality. So for me, it was hard. And the therapist knew. So she gradually moved me in that direction. And I'm okay about it now. And I had to, once I got it, I had to play with it, get to know it, drive around in it, see how I felt. And just kind of get other people around me used to seeing me in the wheelchair. There are some people who are struggling, oh, you shouldn't use that chair. You shouldn't be in a wheelchair, you're too young. And age, folks, age has nothing to do with the use of a wheelchair, okay? So if people start playing that card with you, you're too young, forget about it. In most countries, age is not a priority. Here in the United States, we play with age a lot. You've got to take age out of this. It has nothing to do with a wheelchair. Your health does, but not your age. Doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are. Your health matters. So if you need a wheelchair, work on it emotionally, spiritually. You don't need a wheelchair yet, then what is it that you need? And you do it gradually. Crutches, walker, although crutches for me didn't work, my shoulders are not in good condition. Just my muscles in general, so forget about it. No, crutches, Even the walker is a little painful for me to use it. Walking is painful, but, we increase a little bit of the medication and see, because it's important for me to walk to keep myself going. But, so those are important considerations. So please consider touching base with a nurse, with a doctor, and talking about your mobility needs. And if you are a person who's listening to this and you're in a third world country, in a poor country, consider doing a GoFundMe so you can get the wheelchair you need. Raise some funds. Get a good wheelchair. If you're going to get one, get a good wheelchair that fits you, that fits your needs, it fits the territory you live in. Because all that has to be considered. Whether you live in the desert or in a forest or in the city with bad roads and bad sidewalks. I grew up in Central America and Costa Rica, and I go home from time to time, so I'm thinking wheelchair, potholes, no sidewalks. So I have no idea how I'll handle it, but I'll figure it out when I go home. I'll probably have to use a manual, but we'll see. And I am considering a manual to have here in the bedroom because I just do not want to fall. Falls are bad for me. Very bad. They cause a lot of pain. And I don't want to go back to the hospital. So, especially right now with COVID being so high. So, and I'm sure COVID is an issue for many of you. And someday I'll look back at this video and say, oh my goodness, the era of COVID. Yeah. So do consider, the funds that you need. Do consider your health needs. Don't automatically assume that you need a wheelchair. And if you do need a wheelchair and it's been recommended, work on that. Talk to somebody. Work your emotions through so that you'll be more open to using a wheelchair and hurting yourself less and being able to recover some of your independence with the wheelchair. All right. If you have any questions, any comments, any suggestions on what helped you get to that point, put your comments down below. Down below. Down below. So, this camera thing. Anyway, I'm glad to be with all of you, and I hope you will do better in 2022. And some opportunities for assessments and support will come your way. If you need to talk to somebody, send me an email. Be happy to exchange some thoughts and work with you, walk with you through this process. All right, we'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.